You work for the jerk, pop a perk, cause it hurts, but you sure go berserk when you Gerk on the Derk. It's the Going Off Podcast with Rap Critic and Muse. Yo, Muse, how are you doing?
I'm doing alright. How about yourself?
I came up with this new rap song. It's gonna be called Gerk on the Derk. Like, it's gonna be one of those songs, like, for the first, 3 months when it becomes, a huge hit, it's gonna get played on the radio uncensored because no one knows what it means yet. And then, when, they find out, all of a sudden, it'll be, you'll hear on the radio station, when you're on the... people are gonna be like, wait a minute, I thought this song was... Oh... you ever listen to a song, and you didn't think that there was, a bad implication for it until you heard the edited version?
What I found weird recently is that they don't censor, slob on my knob.
Yeah, I noticed that as well.
But it's there can only be one meaning for that. Very briefly, we gotta talk about what I've learned is our audience's favorite topic. The topic of possible cultural appropriation. It's ya boy, Bruno Mars.
You know him, you love him.
He stands accused...
he stands accused by a court of your peers.
It's a very small court, because it's not many people really share this opinion.
What do you mean not many people? Did you see that video? There's 20 people in the video. I was watching this shit, I was like, Jesus Christ, this is the Wu-Tang Clan of YouTube videos. This isn't something that Bruno Mars's career should stop because of this conversation. It's not one of those things. It's just because we are people who like to analyze, material, let's talk about this. That's where I find it. I don't get offended and I don't feel like this is a battleground to be after you have this discussion, we're trying to figure out if you should listen to Bruno Mars anymore. No, I think people confuse it. That's not what the discussion is. It's just well, is that what's happening?
There was a video that went semi-viral on Twitter, and it was taken from this YouTube video, and there's one clip in it where, this one woman is arguing that Bruno Mars is a cultural appropriator because he performs these specific songs, but he is not a black artist, but yet he performs songs that imitate and sound like
the pastiches of earlier genres of black music.
On Twitter, it was kind of one-sided. People were like, no, that's bullshit. But I think it was worth bringing up and talking about briefly because I found it fascinating that this was even a question that was presented in the video in the first place. Like you had said, in the video, the room is 80-20% people saying, fuck yeah, he is. But the internet seems to be completely flipped. It's like when you go on Rotten Tomatoes, and it's the critic rating compared to the audience rating.
The video starts off, it just seems like it's just this, approach of just they're saying Bruno Mars is a cultural appropriator, full stop. What's the whole, argument? And I was like, at first that's what it seemed like the video was doing, but I was but I realized, the title is just asking the question. That person is giving their perspective. There's also 12 other people in that room. What do they have to say? Because it doesn't sound like they're all agreeing. You know what I mean? It's not like they were all standing, there was one person in the front and everyone else is standing behind them and they're here's what the black, coalition of America thinks of Bruno Mars. No. It was they were turned towards each other talking and they were having the conversation. So I was I wanted to see what else they thought. And it was honestly fascinating just going on the whole ride. Just things that I hadn't thought about before. Certain parts of nuances of, different sides of the conversation concerning a white person performing black music. And then not necessarily someone who's black, but someone who's ethnically just mixed in the sense of cause with Bruno Mars, I just assumed because of his skin and because of the limited scope that America kind of allows people to live in anyway, I was just light-skinned dude, he must be half black and half white maybe. Come to find out, he's quarter Puerto Rican,
he's
quarter
not at
Chinese.
All black. Yeah,
he's not at all black and he's barely white.
Yeah.
I was just in a fair world, it doesn't matter who performs what as long as whoever did it gets the recognition. But I feel like the problem in this specific case is that I think Bruno Mars, the way he learned was a very sort of like, you know, mimic the style sort of thing. And I feel like to an extent we forget how important mimicry is. Like, you have to know how hard it is for black musicians getting their own music known. And now that it's safe to perform this music, now you want to do this music.
I was willing to accept this theory and this point of view because I had thought of something very similar along the same lines with Bruno before, and going all the way back to Uptown Funk, I was like, dude, this is fucking Morris Day and the Time.
Yeah, I remember when I first heard that record, I remember specifically being like, wait, who? Because I turned on the radio station, I didn't know what station it was, and I thought maybe I had turned on the station to, like, the oldies, you know, when you go to, like, yeah, one of those stations that play like, oh, this is like the 80s joke, and I was like, I've never heard this song before, and then when he said, don't believe me, just watch, I was thinking, oh, this must be one of those older cats that's like, they've got like a big new song.
Yeah,
you know, like Morris, you know what happens, like Aerosmith every now and then they'll get like a big hit song, you know, I was like, oh, that's kind of cool, and then when I heard it was actually like a completely new artist, I was like, that felt kind of weird to me, you know?
Bruno just kind of happens to have a tendency going even further back to Treasure. Remember the song Treasure?
That's exactly what I was gonna bring up. See, that's what doubles this.
And those weren't black artists, at least I don't think so. I think that was a white band.
No. I believe that was a white dude. Yeah.
But in that instance, it was, hey, I want to sample this song of yours. And they were like, no, you can't. And he was like, all right, fine. I'm just gonna do it anyway. Fuck you.
Yeah.
And that was like, okay, Bruno's not above just straight up stealing something. So when I heard Uptown Funk, even though that was Mark Ronson's song, it was like, all right, is this just gonna become a fucking thing? And then when fucking Finesse comes out, it sounds straight up early 90s
it's like, okay,
New Jack
three
Swing.
in a row is getting kind of crazy.
And I don't have a problem with someone who isn't a certain ethnicity performing music that another nationality or race had done. Like, I don't have a problem with a white rapper doing rap per se. But see, the thing is, if you announced it more, I think, and made it more of a thing, like, hey, this is an homage. Like, if you made that more of a point, but Bruno does just kind of coast by in seemingly more and more often just recreating sounds.
I think I think what people fear most is like, all right, think about the alternative future where, you know, this genre completely comes back, right? Thanks to Bruno Mars. But then who becomes the face of it? Then the next big hit 90s swing song is Meghan Trainor. Then the next one who has a 90s New Jack Swing song is Nat Roos. And then it's
I thought you were gonna say Charlie Puth.
Yeah, and then it's Charlie Puth. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think that's what people fear. That it's like this. I think that's what, like, just black Americans who have created so many genres that have been reappropriated. There's just that fear of, like, because it's happened so many times. Tropical House. I saw a couple articles that were talking about it. And they're talking about, like, this sound that was, like, Caribbean sort of sounds with, like, Afro pop sort of things. But then they just sort of water it down to make it super generic. And so it's like, it doesn't sound like it's from anywhere, but it's like, you know, it sounds like a sterile version of itself. It's the same thing like cod reggae. Once again, it's like, this is a new genre that just recently started to get some shine. It's been around forever, honestly. Like, all of these subgenres, you know, of world music, you know what I'm saying, all around the world, they've been around. But, like, we see how quickly they get appropriated.
See, I think it's whether or not it is cultural appropriation or cultural inspiration is kind of besides the point. The question is it okay? Because I think that's what I got from most people is that a lot of people are like, yeah, it is, but so fucking what? That's what I was getting from most black folks on Twitter was like, it doesn't fucking matter to me if he is or isn't, because I like the music. What
I like about a lot of these videos is, like, every time I think they're gonna, like, come to, like, oh, well, I know what the conclusion's gonna be, it always ends up going in some sort of way that you don't really, like, there's a certain nuance that you sort of get from every one of their videos that ends up being like, okay, well, I guess I could see that, but in this respect. Not just like, Oh yeah, and so like when I came to the end of this video, I said so the problem with Bruno Mars in particular is that we know for a fact that he has basically ripped someone's song to the point of parody. Now someone else had the point. They said black people do it to other black people too, don't they? Because like I said, we have the designers, we have the like countless artists that have ripped off other black artists. Hip hop culture and like black culture does need to do a better job of calling that out and not just doing that, oh hey, Master P's eating, so just let him be. Doesn't matter that he's ripping off Tupac's style and just like doing that shit. You know what I'm saying? It's just like, well, we do need to do that, but the problem is Bruno's version of style ripping just happens to cross racial barriers, which elevates the importance of it because it's much easier for him to get fame and attention off of it over a dark musician. But the thing that I said is, can you really get mad at Bruno? See, that's the real question.
It's not his fault.
Can you be mad at him? Yeah, it's like, because if I was a lighter-skinned artist, and like if I was doing this exact same show, but I was a white artist, so-and-so other, like, rap artists, like, Anthony Fantano or whatever, if he just did rap, if he was doing that and he didn't get as big off of it and he just happened to be black, like, I'm not gonna stop doing my show because it's unfair that he doesn't get as much attention as me.
Right, yeah.
What you can do is recognize that and maybe like, hey, I'm going on tour. I'm gonna talk to my manager and be like, get all black, backup singers and performers so we can start spreading the wealth to these artists that have paved the way for me. Maybe get like someone who inspired me when I was younger, like have him come out with me. You know what I'm saying? So we can start spreading the wealth and start getting these other artists paid. And that's what I like to see. And some people even said, like, when he did the Don't Believe Me, Just Watch, he paid Trinidad James.
I was just gonna say, like, does it matter or does it make things better or worse when the person who is getting quote unquote ripped off, like, I think Morris Day in the Time got a writer's credit.
Same thing happened to Drake, didn't it? People were like, and I remember I was even one of them. I was like, man, I don't know how I feel about you sampling like, this West Indian sort of like stuff, this Caribbean sound, you know what I mean? But then like later on, I found out like, oh, apparently in his part of Canada, there is that sort of West Indian culture of like those people that moved up there, and so maybe he could have grown up with that.
Yeah.
And then in addition, and sure, you get that sort of side eye of, how come you only want to do this now? But then you could counteract with, well, maybe I felt like I couldn't have done it before. Maybe I felt like I couldn't have, acknowledged my roots before. And then, of course, people say like, well, you're doing a watered down version of this genre. But then, like, turn around and you'll be like, you look up the songs and be like, oh, hey, he's sampling Popcorn. He's sampling this person that's like actually a Jamaican artist, actually a British, like, he was putting on the British accent on that More Life album. But then come to find out he's putting on these other British artists. So it's like, can you get to him? Like, is he just doing that to cover his ass? Is he doing that because he really cares? And then the third question is, should we care? Does it really matter? Are we just consumers and we should just listen to music? Or should we, as consumers, recognize what's happened in the past, things that people have racially taken advantage of, and be smarter about our consumption going forward so that we can live in a more fair world to other, musicians and artists?
I think the point that you made makes the most sense. That people are worried that this new music might erase the past. It might make the old music obsolete because we've got this new music with this new production, the new beats, the new lyrics, the new slang,
who needs
maybe.
The old stuff?
Exactly.
Yeah.
But what I think would help is if maybe like apps like Spotify or Pandora or iHeartRadio, like when you go on there and you're listening to a song, if it had in the recommendations like some of that older shit.
Right.
Like,
okay,
hey, you like this? This sounds a lot like this. Not just other rappers and other artists that are out right now, but actually kind of tip you off to, hey, this is inspired by this. There's a good chance you might like this also.
That would be a good idea to do like sort of like a roots sort of based sort of thing. Like, hey, if you're listening to this hip hop over here, well, did you know that like, this song sampled that? Like you could take like that Nicki Minaj song, that "Be My Woman, Girl, I'll Be Your Man." You'd be like, hey, that's actually sampled from like old jail chain gang songs.
Yeah, right.
And you'd be like, hey, here's someone who like transcribed some of those. You know what I'm saying? Like that could be a really cool way to bring people into music. So this next request is brought to us by Michael Lopez. He requests The Bridge by Frank Waln.
The last thing I was expecting was a Native American rapper. But yeah, lo and behold, there we go. And it just happens to be in our requests, which again, I know we say this a lot, but I think it's more true now than it's ever been. If no one requested Frank Waln, we probably never would have listened to this.
Never.
We would have never known it existed. You know, like, I'm not saying we wouldn't have listened to it because we didn't want to. It's just, how would we have ever known it was a thing? Because nobody's talking about this.
Would we have ever heard about this?
Yeah. In what circle? You know, like,
this isn't even on Rap Genius. There's like one song on
wow,
there.
Is it not?
No, yeah,
Jeez.
it's not.
Wow, okay. So yeah, going in, what were your initial thoughts on this album? I'm gonna ask you first.
Man, we get to track 1. Yo. I had no idea what this album was going to be about till I heard the very first opening seconds. When you hear that sample of Peter Pan, and you know exactly what scene it is, because we're talking about a Native American rapper, your brain just goes, oh, I know where we're going. I know where we're going. Bro, and does it not pay off?
Oh yeah, of course.
Jesus Christ. The whole song is just sampling the What Made the Red Man Red. And it's just like, dude, I remember listening to this song and being like, and then like hearing this is just like, it's like, what's the opposite of cringing? Like, you know, I'm just like, yes, fuck this song. Fuck this entire moment. You know what I mean? Like, oh, the red man became red because he was blushing. Shut the fuck up. People died, you asshole. I pictured the alternate universe where, like, hip-hop was started by Native Americans instead. And, like, this would be, like, the early 90s. You know, like, people sampled, like, a lot of cartoons and stuff in the early 90s and stuff. Like, this is what they would have done instead. It would have been, like, all sampling every time, like, Native Americans were brought up in culture and just, like, turning it back on you know, white people, you know?
It really just throws it in your fucking face, yeah.
Dude, oh my god. Where he samples the, pale face and then samples the white girl saying, savages?
Oh, God.
Dude, it's so good. Because it's like, it's taking that just, like, dumb-faced, ignorant white voice, you know? Like, savages? And then tacking on the pale-faced savages? It's such a, like, that's a moment right there. Yeah. That's like alright, this is, you get the standing ovation for that one. That I just like how you twisted that. Then, now, immediately after that, we get the next song, which kinda, like, reminds you that this is sort of I don't want to diss it, but it's like, you can kinda hear the budget of the music.
Thank you. I was trying to think of a way to put it. Because, the production leaves a good bit to be desired in the way of the beats. I like the sampling, I like the point that it drives home, but I also think that sometimes they rely on it too much. Because, yeah, the beats are just, like, in some tracks, barely existent. It's, like, very right out of the gate, like, almost like amateurish beats, and you almost 100% rely on the lyrics to carry the songs.
And cause I remember like first being kind of averse to the next track. I think it was Victory's song. No, Basement.
Oh, okay,
that one like was really hard to get into, especially when that one verse, like I said, you know, you're relying on the lyrics to kind of get by, and then that one guy starts rhyming basement with basement, and it's just like, all right, dude, you're not helping.
It's too early in the album for this.
Yeah, exactly. And then but then the next verse kind of like brings it back around to being like, you know, because the first song is sort of like the epic message, you know, like, you know, we're making our stand against the white man, you know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Then the next song is sort of like more personal, but it's still sort of, you know, you get the word like res kind of comes up a lot.
Right, yeah.
And, like, I'd never heard that, like, sort of as shorthand for, like, the,
reservation.
The reservations. So it's like, you kind of hear about, like, yeah, we're kind of making music because we don't have that much, and we're stuck on the reservations, and, working through alcoholism and this sort of thing. So it's like, I like how it sort of, like, organically brought in sort of, issues facing Native Americans, but, then you get to Rolly's intro, which could have completely been left off. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I don't care if Rolly's your boy. That auto-tune needed to go. Like, it just sounded like the demo tapes that you released 10 years later. It didn't need to be there. When you only have, like, maybe 10 tracks on this album, like, use everything. You know what I mean? Like, use your time. And it felt like that was sort of like, in a long album where it's like, oh, hey, here's a quick reprise, a little rap right here or whatever, and then you keep it pushing. But, like, in a shorter album, that takes up a lot more of the general time. And so it's just like, why is this here?
It's only about 37 minutes. So it's like, for an intro like that, it's like, you could just keep hitting, especially when, we did just talk about, we just came off a song that wasn't as strong. Now we got an intro thing. Now it's taking it even another step back. So it's like, you gotta just keep hitting them,
And then we get to Treaties, which I enjoyed for what it was. Like, as I was listening to what was happening, like, literally the whole song is just sampling, like, interviews about how, and I mean, it's breathtaking, just the information that you get from the song. The fact that there are over 500 treaties that America has made and broken with the Native American, like, nation. Like, because, and you kind of forget about this, is like, we treated, like, the Native Americans, like, as a whole, as a nation, like, as a nation state. And we were supposed to respect that. And we very clearly didn't. And there was just this period where I guess America just stopped doing that. And then, then you have, like, the Trail of Tears and all these things, And so, like, this song sort of, like, and this song addresses that with, you hear this, like, older sounding, Native American dude, you know what I'm saying? Like, every now and then he sort of, like, does, like, a little spoken verse thing. And it's really powerful when it happens. But the whole time there's, like, this disco beat happening, and it kind of takes away, like, just a little bit from the, like, if this came out in, like, the 70s, it would be like, alright, this is revolutionary, using disco to, say something really serious. But it's just like, man, this is 2016 when this came out, why does it sound like this? You know what I mean? And so, and the thing is, like, it's still powerful despite that, though. But, like, it would be really hard to get someone into this artist through this song. You know what I mean? Oh, man, the way he ends the verse where he says, I had a name, but never mind. And then you hear the, like, slow cut off. And then in the background, you hear the U.S. has broken over 500 treaties. It's just like, man. There's one song on this album where, like, I honestly contemplated if I could continue listening. It was literally the halfway mark. And it was just like, I don't know if I can do it. And she was just talking about, like, a friend that she had lost and her father and how it all sort of built up. And it was like, but it was telling the story, like, what if this went backwards? And instead of him dying, his last gasp would be his first gasp of appreciating life. And it's just, this is like, I can't do it. Can't do it. It's too much. You know what I mean? I'm just like, I honestly want to say this. Like, if there are any Native American people out there and, you want to hip us to, like, reservations, charities, legislation that we can, like, push for, organizations, anything that you can hit us up. If you know Frank Waln, and you want to try to hip him up, get him on the show, we can talk to him and talk about what we can do. Because I feel like that is a part of the conversation that is completely just forgotten, and I would like to be a part of, bringing that back, especially through, hearing all of this pain in this music. And so, but overall, like I said, there's fantastic ideas. You know, the first song is a classic. Like that first song is like that has to be in the hip hop lexicon of just like classic songs. That's literally perfect. Like that's exactly what. Like if there was only one song that you made and you're a Native American rapper, like that's it. You know what I'm saying? Like that shit is just so tight. Style, everything pulled together. The problem is I feel like the rest of the album didn't exactly reach that height. It was still solid, no doubt. My Stone,
7.
Seven.
We didn't even talk about
God.
7. Look at you. That to me was holding the whole rest of the album up. Like 7 is fucking one of the best songs I've heard in a while, just from how absolutely intense. Like you were talking about how Back to the Beginning is like, you know, emotional. Like this was emotional. Fucking ending with straight up sobbing. Like just brought to tears about this.
I forgot!
It's so fucking hard.
And you hear someone who's like talking to him like in their native tongue. And sort of like you can tell he's trying to console him, and it's just
it is
man,
so
I forgot about that. Oh Jesus.
I didn't enjoy the whole album as like a whole package. Like for the most part, I was pretty underwhelmed, unfortunately. The songs did have a lot of really important messages though, and I really appreciate getting to hear those, especially in some of the better tracks. To me, it started out pretty strong. Then kind of fell off a little bit there, here and there. It had only like a handful of songs I would really kind of revisit. On a whole, I'd probably only give it a 3, personally.
I'd give it a 4.
Okay.
I felt like it was like and like I said, I see exactly what you're talking about. Tracks 2 and 3 like are such a weird fall off from the first one. Like it's just such like a, especially Rollies, like Basements is a like track 1 fantastic, track 2 okay, track 3 and this is such a weird like that when tracks subsequently go down in quality so early on an album, it just gives you a bad feeling for everything else, because then your brain automatically is like, all right, well we're seeing the trajectory here, but then Victory Song brings it back up. But then immediately is followed by Treaties, which is sort of like this isn't really a song you could just listen to.
It's not really a song, yeah.
Yeah.
It's like an interlude skit almost.
If we're at the halfway point through this album, there are only 2 real good songs. You know, and that's kind of bad. Like there's What Made the Red Man Red, kinda Basements, and Victory Song. So half of your album is already kind of like, eh. But then you get to the other half, and it's so, you get 7, immediately followed by Runaway, immediately followed by Back to the Beginning. You know what I'm saying?
Now, the second album we just got hit back to back with Angry.
Man.
Just like...
They ain't gonna like this one. They ain't gonna like this one. They gonna be tapping our phones after this one, bro.
We've got a request who came to us from Earthquake. His name is just Earthquake.
Wait, like the comedian?
Or the wrestler from the mid-'80s. Either one, take your pick. Earthquake requests Good vs. Evil by Crooked Eye, a.k.a. King Crooked.
KXNG Crooked, apparently.
And this goes back a ways, because I think we were in a string of talking about albums from people from the Slaughterhouse clique.
Mm-hmm.
And we covered just about everybody except Crooked Eye. And I think this is bingo. I think we can cross it off. I think we've talked about everybody in the damn stable at this point.
Yeah.
Now that we're about to talk about
because we talked
Good
about
versus Evil.
Because Royce da 5'9" did Prime, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
in the Frank Waln album, he's presenting all these issues about, like, these are all the ways that this country has fucked with us, fucked with our people, and he just basically lays it out there and is like, all right, I want you to think about all that. I want you to think about it, and I wanted to make you mad, because I want you to feel bad, because you really fucked with us. Then you got King Crooked, who's like, all right, all these things you're fucking with us? All right, cool. Now I'm gonna fucking kill every last goddamn one of you motherfuckers. And it's like, oh. This is militant as militant gets. Dude, fucking cop killer.
Oh my God.
Got news coverage. Because people thought, holy fuck, hip-hop rappers want to kill police officers. And that was like a whole movement. Police officers were outside their police stations, fearing for their lives because of one rap rock song talking about fucking police brutality, fuck cop killer, and all that shit.
Got his album pulled from Warner Brothers. Ice-T did.
One song.
When you get to this album, and you have this album filled with these moments of, like, the reason why I'm so mad is because, like, you know, cops killed my girlfriend. There's been, like, a million Tamir Rices and no justice. Like, all over the album, it's not like, we're killing the police just because it's Tuesday and we've got nothing to do. No! All throughout the album, you hear these moments of, like, we're tired of being treated like... Matter of fact, let me quote a lyric. He says specifically, they out here drunk with power, hanging people to their seizure. They out here having orgies, going both ways just like Caesar. They out here burning money you could have used to feed your family. They laughing at people starving to death here in the valley. You protest and they tell them robots, go shoot up the rally. Till I'm fighting a man with a sign in his hand, he's dead in the valley. Like, oh my God, like, this is incredible. Like, we go and fight their wars, then come home, it's a damn shame. They got us on the side of the road begging for spare change, while they in the safety of their home sipping on champagne. We about to make their tables turn, that's on everything. Like, it's not fucking Rebel Without a Cause that I feel like people always want to paint this sort of transgressive material. It's just like, it's not like every woman, you know, that would be different, right? If this album started off, everyone had a swimming pool and a mansion, and then everyone just like, yo, fuck peace. And then we just started like wrecking shit. No, people didn't have shit. People started getting angry. That's when this, and of course, you know, this album's set in like, a parallel universe, you know, welcome to Earth X, you know. So when he's saying all this shit, it's just like, well, I'm not talking about actual cops. I'm talking about this alternate universe. The most fucking violent lyrics talking about killing, and when it gets to the end, there's no like, oh, the reveal is that it's like that. No, he totally just kills the big white guy in charge. Like, it's just, he kidnaps their children, he tells them about the horrible things that, you know, he's done, and he's like, and now I'm going to kill your dad. Like, it's pure revenge fantasy.
See, I enjoyed the album a lot at the beginning. I'm gonna say straight up, I didn't enjoy it when it starts getting fantasy-like. Like, I thought it
really?
I thought it was really strong at first. Then all of a sudden, when it's fucking, now all of a sudden it's robots. Like, for the first 5 or so songs, it's like set in modern time, and then all of a sudden it flips a switch. And now all of a sudden, oh no, they're all robots. And it's like, okay. I thought that took some of the power out of what he was saying. Especially when he fucking gave the robot like a weird, stupid voice. I thought that was corny as fuck.
And RoboCop went pop where he's like, I want to kill you.
That was so stupid. At that exact moment was when I started losing interest, honestly. Like,
really?
Up until that point, I thought it was really good. And from there, it just kind of started slipping. In my opinion. And I thought, kind of along with the same lines as the Frank Waln thing, I'm not discrediting what you're saying or your message, but when it's presented the same way over and over again, the songs kind of start to run together for me. Like, especially on this album, like, not many really stood out, especially when the message is the same thing repeated over and over again. Like, it doesn't change up enough. There isn't enough variety on here, so it's an hour of the same thing being crammed down your throat. And if that's the point, that's fine. If that's the album you wanted to make. But I thought it was a bit monotonous. And can we just go back to, and I know we're jumping all over the place here, but kind of digging into the whole, oh, this isn't Earth, this is a whole nother planet. Can we get to a part of a song that I posted on Twitter? Like when we were talking about Tech 9, and there was that one track where he was talking about nothing's my fault or whatever, and I was like, I don't really know how to feel about the rest of the album. The one track, Obey. I'm just gonna read this as is, and under the context of Earth 2 or whatever, follow the code of being an outlaw, get every dollar I'm owned. Fuck it, these white-collar criminals trying to swallow the globe. They out here getting paid off. The backs of the same workers they laid off. Then they cut the drug trade off. No money getting that weight off. These days, you can't tell a Bernie Sanders from a Bernie Madoff. They all the same bunch of Adolfs under a different swastika.
I didn't think about that until just now.
I'm just gonna break this down because this is a problem on two fronts, and I'm coming at this as a, you know, Bernie got me interested in politics, but I'm taking that out of the equation entirely. I'm just gonna look at this as an impartial guy.
That is a little confusing, though. Like,
so,
what?
On one hand, right, Bernie Madoff was a man who scammed the banks, okay?
Yeah.
Bernie Sanders is a man who's trying to break the banks and hold the banks responsible, so even on that level, they have nothing in common.
Uh-huh.
And on part 2, which I think is the more obvious one, when you were writing this song, even if you tried to cleverly mess it up, or try to be like, wink, nudge, you straight up say, Bernie Sanders, bunch of Adolfs, you're gonna say a Jewish man who had family in the Holocaust is a bunch of Adolfs under a different swastika. I don't care if you're saying a different swastika.
Okay.
What the fuck is your problem with a man who, A, now I am kind of the fanboy, marched for civil rights, fought way fucking harder than any other politician that you, for some reason, he's the only one you, by name, give shit for. Especially when Trump is running, you don't even mention him by name. Not Hillary, no, just Bernie. That came to me as like an anti-Semitic thing, and I could be reading into that, but it was really weird hearing that.
Can I just say, I feel like I've seen plenty of times where people like denounce Bernie Sanders, and people go like, oh, just because he showed up in a couple of civil rights pictures, it's like, okay, no, you can't do that. You can't be like, oh, you can't minimize someone's work just to what you've seen. You know what I mean? Like,
I'm really curious what Killer Mike, who sat down and talked to Bernie in a fucking barbershop for over an hour, would have to say about this, because, like, this is the only rapper I've heard specifically give Bernie shit for anything, and it feels and sounds like the most uninformed, misguided anger towards old white man. I hate him. Like, why though? Especially when you have Trump, another old white guy. What's the difference? He's Jewish.
Let me give the best explanation that I think I can give.
Okay.
This is the most positive perspective, right? So he says, look at it in context. He says, these days, you can't tell a Bernie Sanders from a Bernie Madoff. Now, he's using those two first names because they're similar, right? The names are similar, but also there is that irony. One of them is fighting for the banks. One of them is trying to rip off the banks, and one of them is trying to reform the banks. You know what I'm saying? Now, you could say that he brought those two names up to show the dichotomy. You can't tell the good guy from the bad guy, because it all seems like they're the same. In the same way, you could kind of look at this election, right? Because if you looked at this election, the past election, you'd say, who's the good person? Well,
right.
You'd probably say it was Hillary, right? Who's the big bad person? You'd probably say it's Trump. But it's like, well, Hillary hasn't exactly been the best when it comes to, you know what I'm saying, social issues. So, like, you can't even say that. So, like, in a respect, you could say, oh, you can't tell the good guys from the bad guys. I could see him using a hyperbolic thing in order to say that. But I feel like in a situation in which, out of the three candidates that we're prominently talking about, Bernie Sanders was probably the least asshole-ish one. In that context, it looks weird that you would bring up only that presidential candidate's name, the guy who didn't even end up affecting anything ultimately, to be like the example of someone who is corrupt, especially when, if you looked at in the compared to these three politicians, yes, he would be the least corrupt, but that's what makes it all the more ironic that he uses his name here to be like, you can't tell a guy who genuinely is good from someone who genuinely is a piece of shit.
Right. See, if he would have just had that line,
yeah,
I would have questioned it, but I would have been okay with it. It's the Adolf's swastika shit.
Like, do you think it's just that because Madoff and Adolf rhymes? I mean,
he hasn't. he didn't impress me too much with the lyrics on the album, but I never thought he was lazy. That sounds lazy. If it comes down to I'm rhyming Adolf with Madoff, like, that seems calculated.
And then someone also said both of them are apparently Jewish. So Bernie Madoff is also Jewish.
Bernie tends to be a Jewish first name, yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I just never considered that. No, but now that I think about it, it's like, yeah, because remember wasn't there that one dude who was Jewish, his name was Bernard. What am I thinking of? Is it the Santa Claus? Or that one, like, ironically Jewish elf? Does anyone remember
maybe.
That? It was like Bernard. Is this more of a Jewish name than I remember?
I guess it is.
See, wait, hold on. Let me look up the Santa Claus. I remember this kid was in like a couple of movies where he's like, it's very obvious that I'm acting like an old Jewish man, but I'm actually 13. You know, like that was sort of like his shtick. Yeah, Bernard the elf from the Santa Claus.
Weird.
Yeah, is that that's strangely racist now? Like, is Bernard a Jewish name?
Yeah,
would
that's
that
weird that that would be in a kid's movie.
Yeah, but I just never put that together. Like, is that an anti-Semitic thing? Bernie, if you know what I mean. Like, I just never thought about that.
I mean, I guess it would be the same as like, hey, there's Jerome.
Yeah, I guess,
Yeah.
But I just never thought about Bernie as a specifically Jewish name. It just never crossed my mind.
I was taken aback by that, and I'm just gonna say straight up, like, I felt some type of way about it, but it made me think, it got me thinking, it stuck with me, and I think that's important in hip-hop, that you say things that actually gets the gears turning.
Gets the people going!
It gets the people going! But in this case, like, it was kind of to its detriment. Like, I didn't think...
less people are gonna listen to the message because, wait a minute, that sounds anti-Semitic.
Yeah, like, I didn't think, wow, he got me thinking because he said something I'd never thought before. It's, he got me thinking because he sounded anti-Semitic there.
Right.
He's getting the attention for the wrong reasons there.
Oh my god. Intergalactic Hustlin', bro. You cannot deny. That had the bombest ass fucking beat.
That came off kind of cheesy to me.
That shit had me singing along with it. That intergalactic hustling, hey, dude. I don't care if the song was about nothing. You know what that song was? That was like if gangster rap was in space. That's what that song was.
You know, it's like every so often we get songs like that because remember Fightin' Words had a random song where it was like Diabolics in space, and then on Mega Ran's album it was like, hey, it's Mega Ran and Cool Keith in space.
Hip hop in space.
See,
that's where we're going next, bro.
I've mentioned this before on the show.
Space hop is the new thing.
Oh shit! It really is a common thing that fucking rap can be really fucking nerdy at times.
Yes.
You know, it's like it doesn't come up a lot, but it's there.
Okay, can I tell you something? I just listened to Mobb Deep's first album, right?
Okay.
I had to listen to it for for next week. I'm doing an episode
for a super secret project.
Yeah, and I come across an interlude, right, in the middle of the album, and on the infamous Mobb Deep's first album, there's an interlude, and you know how Ghostface, I think it's Raekwon the Chef's album, you know, where they had the thing where it's like, man, are you biting ass rappers, man? Don't be biting for my niggas, you know that whole thing, right? Mm-hmm. The shark niggas, guillotines, whatever, shark Shark Niggas Biters or something like that. That was the name of the skit, right?
Oh, okay.
So there's a skit on Mobb Deep's first album too. Well, their debut album when people knew them. And on the album, he's talking his shit. You know, he's just like, man, I'm a regular dude. I'm just letting you know from the jump. You know what I'm saying? This is real. I'm just being who I am. Da da da. You're like, all right, you can't do nothing but respect that, right? Then at the end, he says, and oh yeah, to all them rap-ass niggas with your half-ass rhymes, talking about how much you get high, how much weed you smoke, and that crazy space shit that don't make no sense. Don't ever speak to me when you see me, you know what I'm saying? I'm just like, whoa, where the fuck did that come from?
Where's the space hate come from?
Yeah, exactly. It's like, cause like the way I took it was like, hey, I'm doing gangster rap. That's what, you know, is good for me. And like usually gangster rap like dudes are kind of like, you know, you do your thing and I do my thing. You know what I'm saying? Like whenever somebody talks shit about gangster rap, they're like, look, there's other genres of rap you can listen to. Just let me do what I want to do. You know what I'm saying? But then to specifically be like, draw a line in the sand like that and be like, oh man, all you crazy space age rappers saying shit that don't make no sense. Like, usually it's the opposite, right? You know, usually you have the conscious rappers that are like, man, aren't you tired of all these gangster rappers, you know, doing all this stuff? But like, this is the first song, at least first few songs where it's like gangster rapper going like, man, enough of this space age shit. And then like, I was racking my brain. I'm like, well, who was doing space age shit? And like,
that's a really good question. Yeah.
Yeah, like 1995. It was like, Outkast eventually, but I don't think they were doing it in 95. I think it was like 96.
Yeah.
So I was like, who
the
and then
fuck?
I had to look at the annotation and it was like, they said, according to them, they said Keith Murray and Redman were known to rap about smoking weed and use space-like metaphors at the time.
Oh.
I'm like, is that what we know Redman and Keith Murray for? Like,
now,
they rap about space? Like, that's not real. I mean, they rap about smoking weed, but I'm pretty sure Mobb Deep does that too. So, like, what? I don't understand, like...
That's interesting.
Yeah, like
never would have guessed that.
Like but I love that idea because it's like, you know, we're listening to rap now that's like we've got Deltron, like right. You know, like that is way out there and that is considered like classic now, you know, and it's so weird to think like at the time, like stuff was so not weird at the time, like when you think about like relative to now, stuff was so not weird that for like. You know, maybe Redman brought up, like, one or two lyrics about, like, I'm so high, it's like I'm on a spaceship. Yeah. And, like, you know, in 1995, rap dudes thought that was like, what? Talking about a spaceship? That's weird. You know what I mean?
Spaceships.
Like, that's the weirdest hip-hop could possibly get. You know, like...
We're out here dealing with shit on Earth. You're trying to escape it in space?
We're talking about real-life problems.
You get down here in the shit with us.
Yeah, it's just like, that's just so weird. Like, I think like today, like, you know, that guy, like if someone were to make that argument now, like they would be on the P. Diddy Waka Flocka Flame side of things.
Oh,
you know?
yeah.
Because like weirdness is so accepted now. It would be like, who are you to be like, don't be weird. Have you seen rappers that, like everyone looks like friggin' Fruity Cocoa Puffs in their dreads, man. Like,
yeah.
It's the rainbow dread era now, you know? Like, no one gives a fuck anymore.
I forget who it was, but it was someone talking... Hold on. I'm gonna look it up real quick. It was in, that song Family Feud by Jay-Z. He's talking about how people give shit to the new school.
Yeah.
And he was like, let's not forget that Tupac had a nose ring.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, yeah, you're getting on people for not looking like a rapper. Like, shut the fuck up.
Yeah, that would not have, like, if you really think about it, like, rappers did not have nose ring. Like, if you think about it, in the 90s, that was a girl thing.
Yeah,
a stereotypical girl thing. And as a matter of fact, when you think about Snoop Dogg, remember when he would have the he would have the braids? And
yeah.
He would have those sort of things that, like, would typically be used for, like, girls. But it's just like, Snoop Dogg's doing it. and you can't say anything about it. You know what I mean?
Because it's fucking Snoop, yeah.
Yeah, it's like, what the fuck are you gonna say? Don't do that? That doesn't look cool? No, of course it looks cool. It's Snoop Dogg doing it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so it's like, you know, and they were challenging the norms in their own way. And I feel like rappers are doing it in their own way today. You know, like you got rappers out here with straightened rainbow hair and a sex joke tattooed all over their body. Like, no one gives a fuck anymore. Like, think about it. Tekashi 6ix9ine. Come on, we know that that's a reference to 69ing. Like,
yeah.
He just happened to choose that number out of... I don't care if it's like, oh, I was born in 1969, or I lived on 69th Street. You know why you chose the name 6ix9ine. Because it sounds... Oh, because 69 is a sex joke. Like, that's why you chose... You know what I mean? You didn't call yourself Tekashi 74. Like, let's not... You named yourself after a stupid, childish sex joke, and you tatted it all over your body. Yeah. Like, let's be real about why people do shit. And you did it because, hey, it catches people's attention, you know?
Right.
Like, we're in 2018. Like, it's a different age. You know what I'm saying? People are challenging the norm. And now, you can think it's cool in one respect. There are some ways where people do challenge the norm, and I do think it's cool where it's like, hey, that's not the typical norm, and I like that you're challenging that. But in the other respect, where sometimes people challenge something and it's just like it just feels attention grabby, you know, and it all depends really. Like, you know, in one respect, someone could be like, "Hey, I'm challenging the norm," in another respect, where it's like you're not really challenging the norm, but like Lady Gaga, like sometimes, hey, she has a cool video that's challenging the norm, where like, oh, she kisses a girl or whatever, like. That's not what you... I mean, as much as we like to go like, oh, you know, that's just tantalizing, that. It is sort of transgressive in a way. You know what I mean? Like, you know, it is challenging some sort of norm in a way. As much as it is, like, male-pleasing. But in a way, it is, like, it is challenging what is supposed to be the norm. You know what I mean? The norm is not, you can just kiss a girl 20 years ago. You know what I mean? That wasn't the norm. You know? But now we're saying, like, the norm can be... Yeah, she can kiss a girl in this video. And that's transgressive in one way, right? But then you have, in another way, where she wears a meat suit. And it's just like, that was just stupid. And you can try to say, oh, I was doing it because of this. Okay, but you stink. Please take that off. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
You know, so it's like, it's all about the balance and how you make your art, you know?
So, we went off on a completely different tear, not talking about the album, but I think that's kind of saying something in itself.
Going off podcast.
Yeah. I don't really have too much more on the album to say, other than, like, I liked it at first. I thought it got weak as it went, and I didn't really care too much for the Robo thing.
Personally, I actually really like this, and I would give it a 5 out of 5. I think that it's solid enough that it deserves it.
I would probably give it a 4 at the most.
Once again, back to hating Muse, as I always say.
Still, over an average, and I'm hating.
Of course.
All right.
Of course. It's because with every album, with both albums, I rated it a star higher than you. So now I gotta be back on my bullshit. I gotta hate Muse.
Now, see, I'm saying, like, it's fine if you're gonna make an angry album, but, like, for me, it's like, that's all it was. Like, I didn't pick up on a lot of super clever lyrical bits. Like, it was mostly just talking about shooting people up. And like I said, if that's the fucking album you want to make, that's fine. But it didn't have enough variety to keep me interested, really.
I thought it had enough, like, stuff in it to really keep me in it, especially, like, music-wise. Like I said, there's, like, songs where, like, the music loops over into another song, carries over to another song, you feel, like, the sort of energy of it. Lots of cool parts where you have, like, this the king's speech where he actually, like, talks to the people and you hear the music under him. I don't know, I feel like it's really creative. I understand it does feel a little like, alright, you're just killing people. Is something else gonna happen? I get that. But I don't know. I feel like I feel like there are enough solid grooves for me to forgive that in a way.
A really small nitpick you reminded me. You were talking about how the music kind of overlaps. I noticed on the other side of that, like, the first track, where it's a lot like the first track on the Frank Waln album, actually, that it has a lot of samples that kind of lets you know what the album is going to be about. Like, it has all these these samples of people in the media. You hear Alex Jones in there at one point, and it's like, it gets you fucking hype, because you know exactly what it's going to be, and it fucking makes you angry. And then it just fades out, and then the next track starts like a few seconds later, and then the second track is like a few seconds later. Like, I think I would have liked this album a lot more if it would have kept with the intensity, but like, it would fucking build you all the way up, and then it would just drop. And then there'd be like a couple seconds of silence before the next song starts. Like, if it just would have been like continuous into the next one, like just non-stop hitting you, I think I would have liked that. But if it made it like it was less impactful to me, because it kind of
sequence it properly.
It kept reminding you that it was an album. You know, like, I couldn't experience it as I think they meant it to be.
Instead
like,
of giving you a solid groove.
Yeah, it just felt like, yep, that was a song, not a thing that was supposed to be like a big serious message that I was supposed to really fucking, you know, it was like, it kept reminding me, no, that was a track on an album. Here is the next track on the album, you know, and like, in that way, it all just kind of, in that it didn't flow together. In my mind, it ran together, because it just sounded like, here's the song again, just with a different beat. And I wasn't a huge fan of the beats. Like, a lot of it sounded like the same type of, like that gangsta trap beat, which was like, okay the first couple times, but then I kept hearing it, you know? Like, I thought they kept, not recycling, but I kept hearing the same kind of sounds, and mixed with the same type of lyrics and the same content, it just felt like repetitive to me. But overall, I still liked it better than the Frank Waln album, which is why I got to give it a point higher. But I probably wouldn't be revisiting it. However, side note, there is a sequel to Good and Evil Part 2, and on the cover, it does actually have a characterized Trump, and the first song is called The MAGA Continues.
Yeah.
So, I'm kind of curious.
The MAGA Continues. I just got it. Because I was like, wait, the Making America Great Again. Oh, wait, I see what's happening.
I'm kind of curious the direction of that album, and I think it might be more focused, and it might actually be like, the whole time I was listening to this album, I was like, man, I really wonder what he would say about, like, Trump's America. And then I was like, oh, I get to hear what he had to say about Trump's America? I'd kind of rather listen to that, you know? Like, this one, it seemed like, I'm mad! And it's like, it's going in all these different directions. It's like, oh, good. Now I can kind of focus it a little bit.
You know what it is? This is the album that he made the night he heard Trump was elected.
Ah!
This is all the anger, and now the next album is like, okay, how do I react now that I've actually seen him do things?
Yeah, it's like, now I've actually seen his effect. Now I'm even angrier.
Yeah, like, before that was just blind anger. Now I, like, know why I'm angry.
Yeah, exactly.
But we'll see what happens if someone requests it. So,
wink,
you know.
wink.
Yeah, you like that? You like that?
And as we say that, we do have requests available on our Patreon pages. Head over to either patreon.com/rapcritic or patreon.com/muse for the details on there. I'm just going to do a cheap plug. Since I'm celebrating a decade on YouTube,
Woo!
I'm lowering the price of the reviews from the original $40 to a slightly smaller, more affordable $30. And I've already had a few people take advantage of this, and I know people are already thinking, man, there's already more people in line. The queue is just getting gigantic. But I do gotta say, and I do gotta point out, we have been pretty consistent.
We've been drilling through them.
On doing these requests, yeah, so we're actually getting through them pretty fast. So, you know, it might be sooner than you expect. But with all that said, with the album's reviews out of the way, with our thoughts on Bruno Mars, you can let us know what you think about it in the comment section. I'm sure you will. Until next week for the Going Off podcast, follow us on Twitter, follow us on Facebook. If this is your first time listening to us, all of our old episodes are on SoundCloud and iTunes. Just search Goin Off Podcast. That's GOIN apostrophe off podcast. And until next week for the show, I'm Muse.
And I'm Rap Critic. And Gerk on the Derk.
You can't say that.
What?
You can't say that. We're gonna get a fine.
Oh, do I have to edit it?
Yeah.
All right, so let me do the rap verse edited.
Thank you.
You work for the papa, cause it hurts, but you sure go berserk when you on the